This is like an intentional discipleship style group. So I'm going to teach my best, but I also am open for like interaction, for questions, because that's part of like the beauty of a thing like Life School is that there's enough time to talk to everybody, right? So like if we have to go 5 minutes extra, or if I finish a few minutes early, no one's going to be mad. And what I'm really here to do is essentially, I've been in ministry for over 20 years. I'm here to teach you the best things I know, okay? And the things that are the most important. So a little bit about myself. I got saved probably when I was around your guys' age, you know, kind of. I didn't necessarily have one of those like one moment, like I was raised in a Christian house, I was a rebellious kid, I wasn't born again. I had a season of life where like there's about 5 times I said, like, oh, maybe I got saved that night, but eventually my life was changed ultimately. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I had like evangelistic gifts. So the guys who led me to Christ were, I got saved like, oh, real quick side note. Anybody here, actually no, we'll do that in a minute, sorry. We'll go back onto this and then I'll ask those questions in a minute. So I got saved in a charismatic church, which I didn't really know. I just knew that I liked it. I knew that it was different than the Baptist church I grew up in. I've typically been in more of like a non-denominational Baptist minister, but I have a secret charismatic bone too, so we'll be able to talk about some of those things, how that works, what's safe, what's not maybe. Yeah, and so basically what happened was I got saved, I owned a painting business, I got married, and I started just leading a bunch of people to Christ because the guys who led me to Christ, and you know, when I had like my big kind of life change moment, I came into the pastor, kind of had like one of those like crying meetings with my pastor, like I'm living a double life, like I was raised in church and I've been smoking pot, like every day, like, you know, and it was just like I got grace, and so that was on a Tuesday, and then the pastor called me. See, all these things I just thought were normal. Like the senior pastor called me and was like, hey, we're hanging out on Friday. Like, you want to hang out? And I was like, sure, I guess. I don't know what to do now that I didn't know what to do. I was like, all right, I'm going to be a Christian now. So like a lot of the stuff I was spending my time with was no longer permissible. And so I asked the pastor, where are we going? And he's like, oh, we're going to go to this bar. And I was like super confused at first. I was like, wait a minute, we're going to the bar? Like, I thought I was supposed to not go to the bar because I'm like a Christian now. And he was like, oh, we're not going in. He's like, we're going to hang out. And then when drunk people come out, we're going to offer them free rides in the church van and tell them about Jesus. So that's literally the first thing I ever did as a Christian. I'd been saved for like 3 days and we were picking up drunk people. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know I knew John 3:16 and some of like the memory verses I learned in Sunday school as a kid, you know, but like I'm like driving the car and I'm like, you know, I was driving the van and I'm like, you know, I know you feel good right now, but when you get home, you're going to feel real bad, you know. And then it was like, hey, tonight, right before you fall asleep, you're probably going to think about your life and it's not going to be good thoughts. Like I felt like that last week. This week I feel great. You know, like that's all I really had. But I didn't know any better. And the beautiful part about it is that the guys who led me to Christ treated evangelism just like it was like normal part of Christianity. So I thought that was just normal. And so like I own this painting business. Well, painting is a great way to lead people to Christ because you're like in their living room. So you're like, you know, so like 2 or 3 years later, I'm sitting at my church and I led like 30 or something of my customers to Christ and they all went to church with me. And my pastor was like, so like the whole section there is people you led to Christ. He was like, have you ever thought about being a pastor? And I was like, never thought about it. Like, and that kind of put me on a journey to ministry. So I started college actually when I was 23. I was a little bit older. I was like on an entrepreneurial track, like owning businesses, starting like service companies essentially. And I got engaged to my wife, when she said yes to marry me, she said yes to like a young entrepreneur who was probably going to like make money. And so I had to come to her like halfway through the engagement and be like, so would you still want to marry me if I decided to be a pastor? And she said no. And so then, no, I'm just kidding. She said yes. She said yes. And so I literally got married in November and then started Bible school in January. So I really was wowing my wife with my skills. We lived in like a male dorm area. And it was rough, but you know, you're in love, so that's all good. And basically within 3 years, I know this is going to sound crazy, but within 3 years of that time, I was hired at like the most prestigious church in our region and was essentially prepping to preach to 5,000 people and doing really cool ministry opportunities. And so I just kind of had like a really non-traditional path to ministry. And so I did that, pastored some large churches. Even the church that I thought was small was still like eventually 1,200 people. I got a little bit burned out from that, but during that season too, that's also when I met Zane. And if any of you guys have ever done Dare to Share, Greg. So I became good friends with guys like Zane and Greg and started to do Dare to Share stuff. I took a little break from ministry because like I'm not built to be like an office dwelling pastor. Like I have that skill set, but I don't have that personality, right? Like I like study, I like theology, but I like people and and I'm not afraid of lost people. Like being in the church like is good, but not if the church isn't focused on reaching new people for Jesus. Like that's the way my bend is. And not everybody has the same level of intensity with that I would, but like, then that's okay. Like I've learned that, like I used to just get grumpy and be like, everyone stinks. Like nobody wants to do witnessing. Like, then you learn later, like, okay, well you can either complain about that or you can just like help people do it. And so essentially that's what my ministry is now. So I train pastors, I help churches, I do help with church planning stuff, I do things like this. Sometimes I'll preach at large conferences, sometimes I'll preach at small churches, sometimes I'll preach at big churches. Doesn't really matter to me. I'm not interested in like the size of something at all. I'm really interested in like if Jesus wants me to do that job, right? And so I'm super excited to be here with you guys because this is one of the things that Jesus wants me to do. He wants me to come here, tell you the best things that I know, try to love you, answer your questions, try to encourage you in your walk, and just see you get excited about things. So we're going to talk about all sorts of cool stuff. So basically, for like the week, we're going to learn. So like you guys did some gospel training with Zane last week, correct? All right, so like this week, what we're going to do is we're going to build on that first. We're going to go deeper though, and we're going to like do like the theology of evangelism, the theology of the gospel. So the first 4 sessions, we'll do 2 tonight, are going to be the 4 things everybody should know about the gospel. So like, you guys learned the GOSPEL, right? All right, so there's lots of those training tools that exist. There's like the 4 spiritual laws, there's a GOSPEL, there's 3 circles, like there's tons and tons and tons of them. And they all work really good unless somebody asks you a question. And if you don't know the answer, things can get derailed kind of quick, right? And so what I want to do is this week is like, you know, sometimes you'll go out, like, so if you went out with a person like me or Zane, and this isn't to knock anyone, it's just like experience. Some of us are going to have different gifts, right? Like, I remember going out with like some guys who were really trained, super skilled, and being like, whoa, like they're getting further than I am, right? And so I'm like, what I want to do is like, imagine if you went out with me and it was going good for me and not going good for you. And I just pulled you aside and said, here's all the other stuff that I know that you don't know yet. So I want to teach you all of that stuff, like the deeper questions. So the first 4 sessions are going to be, why is God so good? If you want to lead someone to Christ, even for your own life, just knowing the gospel better at a deeper level, like it always starts with God, right? And here's a scenario. Imagine you want to share the gospel with somebody and you're like, oh, God is so good. And they're like, I don't think God is good. And I don't think God's good because my grandma got killed by a drunk driver and the drunk driver got away. And if God was good, he wouldn't do that. Like most people at that situation are going to be cooked, right? Because you're like, but he's good, trust me. Like, I feel that he's good. Like, you got to have more answer than that, right? So that's session 1. Session 2 is like, hey, what do you got? Like, people go to hell who aren't Christians. I'm sure we all agree with that here. Like, that's wild and scary. And does that make sense? Like, we need to be able to explain the justice of God in such a way that God is still good and that it actually makes sense to people. And there's a way to do that. So we're going to talk about that tonight. So tonight is, why is God so good? Why is sin so bad? Tomorrow is, here's a great question. So those are the first two questions. Why is God so good? Why is sin so bad? Question 3 is, here's a great question every Christian should know. Why is Jesus the only one who can save us? Think about that for a second. Like, do you feel equipped to answer that? Well, you will tomorrow. Like, we're going to work that out, okay? And then the fourth one is going to be, how do you actually lead someone to Christ, if it's going good, right? So, like, if it's going good, like, to a certain point, like, if I'm talking to someone and they're like, yeah, maybe God is good. Well, maybe sin is bad. Dang, I never thought about Jesus. Like, you get to a certain point where you're like, so... do you want to be a Christian then? We're going to walk through that, and I'm going to show you what I like to call is the Bible sinner's prayer. So I'm even when I'm witnessing to someone, if it's going good, I'll literally stop at a certain point in time and say hey, listen, if I could show you in the Bible exactly where it says how to have your sins forgiven, how to have everlasting life, would you want to see that? And surprisingly, actually probably not, no one ever says no. Now, they may not receive it after you show them, but they're never no, don't show me how to have my sins forgiven and have everlasting life, right? If they're going to be mean about it, they already were, and the conversation didn't make it that far, right? Okay, so then after that, we're going to teach you how to use your spiritual gifts. Now I'm going to start asking you guys a few questions. Who in here has any idea what their spiritual giftednesses might be? What do you think yours might be? Leadership, great. Do you know any of the other ones? Discernment. Nice. Okay. Anybody else? All right. So, yeah. Serving. Great. So, if you're a service person, does that seem like a super evangelistic gift?
Yeah.
It is. Right. So, what we're going to do is we're going to look at spiritual gifts, and we're going to talk a little bit about how when you have different spiritual gifts, that can dictate a little bit how you do your mission in life. That's cool. So I'm very more prophetic, more encouragement type person. So I'm super bold. I'm not I say things that most people are you should not say that. And I am not here to actually teach you to witness the same way I do. Because if you do it like me, you might get punched or something. I don't know. I get away with stuff because of my spiritual gifts. I say crazy stuff to people all the time. I'll meet people, share the gospel with them 7 minutes into the conversation. I'm so you're going to go to hell for sure, dude. And they're man, you're really nice, and and so my goal here is not to teach you how to share the gospel the same way I do. It's to teach you the gospel so that you can share the gospel supernaturally through your spiritual giftedness. So mercy. Anyone in here think they might be a mercy person? Come on, there's got to be a mercy person. All right, so mercy people, right? So I was just teaching at a church in my hometown, and this lady came up to me afterward, and she's I thought I had this curse that every time I would go be around hurting people, I could feel their pain. It was a burden to me almost, right? And she's I thought that was a curse. And she's but tonight I learned that that's actually my spiritual gift, and that's how those are the people I'm supposed to be in with. Right? And so hospitality, I remember taking the spiritual gifts test with my buddies when we first got saved, and we all three of us wanted to be pastors, and we were at a Pentecostal church, so by the way, they have extra gifts. So my gift test looked super cool. It was apostle, prophet, evangelist. I'm yeah, I'm gonna do good. And my buddy was oh man, he's I got acts of service and hospitality. What am I gonna do? I'll never be able to preach with those gifts. And that's not true, by the way, but there's some misconceptions. And so the other big theme that we're covering after spiritual gifts is what does it mean to be an ambassador of Christ? And then we're going to get kind of a little crazy at the end. And I want to teach you guys about the unseen realm, the spiritual battle that takes place. And we're going to go into some really cool stuff there. Okay? Can ask me questions along the way, but ultimately, if someone asked me, if you took these 8 hours that you had, what would you call what you're trying to teach these students? I would just simply call it living the supernatural life. Evangelism, first off, let's say this. Christianity is a supernatural religion. We serve a supernatural God. We have a supernatural book. Angels, demons, Satan, all this stuff, this is the real battle, okay? And evangelism is an exclusively supernatural thing. You could be the most skilled person in the world, try to lead someone to Christ, and if God doesn't show up, nothing's going to happen. period. So like, how do we live a supernatural life with our giftedness? And like I said, going all the way back to the beginning, we start with, let's go deep into the gospel for 4 hours, right? Let's really talk through some of the depth that's there for us. And then, yeah, because I mean, ultimately, you don't who in here thinks they're going to be a pastor, by the way? Anybody? Or a missionary? Okay, so a couple, few, right? Not everybody. Right? So what does it look like when you're 34 and you got a couple kids and your kids show up and they got new friends from school and those friends' parents aren't saved? Well, that's your mission field. Like it just never stops. Like that's the point. Like, and it's a supernatural life. Okay, does that make sense? Anyone have any questions? None?
I think it's kind of crazy. Me and Destiny had our prayer walk today, and we literally were talking about the spiritual world.
Yeah.
And evangelism.
Yeah, it's inextricably related, right? And so, that's one of the things that I think I've had the privilege to do is to be involved with the highly supernatural ministry, right? And I'm just straight up, like, I'm Pentecostal friendly, but I'm not a Pentecostal. I'm not against that. I preach at charismatic churches. I preach at fundamentalist Baptist churches. I'll preach anywhere, right? But the reality is like, there's just some things that we all agree on. And like, you could be a Calvinist or an Arminian. It doesn't really matter. Like, if you're a Calvinist, you still believe that God saves people. God does it supernaturally through his power. If you're an Arminian, you still believe that. Everybody believes that. Like, in the way that you can know this, by the way, is like, you don't even have to teach a Christian this. They know it in their spirit. So if I took 5 people together and said, hey, we need to pray for this guy. He's lost. Let's pray for him. And then I just listened. I would hear this. God, open his eyes. God, soften his heart. God, let him hear and understand, right? Because our spirit knows that somebody's not getting saved unless God does the thing. Make sense? All right, so let's get into the gospel. We're starting with the gracious God. So the gospel begins with God. And I think when you're thinking about the gospel, like the most famous gospel verse is just John 3:16, right? For God. The first 2 words, for God. So what? Yeah, he loved the world. He gave his only son. Whosoever believes in him would not perish, have everlasting life, right? The gospel starts not with us, but with the generous and loving character of God. And if we get this wrong, it's like, anybody in here ever shoot a gun or a bow and arrow? All right. If you're aiming at a target that's like 100 yards away, and you get off right here by 1 inch, how far are you going to miss the target by? Like a mile, right? If we start the gospel with anything other than God, we won't hit the target. You will miss the target because the gospel ultimately is about God. And there's some things that we need to be able to communicate about God that make, and this all works together because the gospel actually makes sense. All right, so it's not like you should be confident as you grow and learn in your knowledge of the scriptures that when you talk to people, like it's going to make sense. Okay, and so like that's what I want to kind of help with. So like obviously God is our creator. All right, I think we all agree with that. But this is actually a really important thing. And you like think about a place like Santa Cruz where, Christianity is probably not super popular, but spirituality is. If spirituality, and by the way, just so you know, atheism is dying. It's dying. So anyone ever heard of Frank Turek? It's like so I was doing a ministry thing with Frank Turek last year. And I was talking with him because he wrote a book called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, right? And I was basically like, good job, bro. You guys helped kill atheism. Like atheism's dying. Like when I talk to young people, like that's not what they're, like if I went up and talked to a random young dude who's like, listening to the Joe Rogan podcast a lot and like doing stuff, he is not an atheist. He's like, bro, what do you think about aliens and the pyramids and like the giants, right? And by the way, we can talk about that too. So like, I'm fine with all that stuff. Like, because I think as Christians, we have all the answers to those questions. But they're not like, like space dust, bro. We're just space dust, like all random. Like people are like into spiritual things, like atheism's going away, pagan spirituality is kind of on the rise again, which makes sense. And if you look at the history of the world, by the way, do you know what the most like rarest religion ever to exist is? Atheism. Find any culture ever anywhere in recorded history, and what you will find is a culture that worships false gods. It's just European folk for and European descendant folk for about 150 years, where all of a sudden there is no God, but that's their religion, right? Which, by the way, that kind of stuff manifested itself during COVID and other things with what some people would call scientism, where people are trust the science, right? And it's I trust God. I like science. I'm not anti-science, but I trust God. You know what I mean? And science isn't my religion. You know what I mean? So even atheism actually is a religion, but it's dying, okay? So we serve a creator God. Obviously Genesis 1:1, right? In the beginning, God, right? John 3:16, the gospel. For God. God, God, God. Psalm 19:1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and creation testifies to his power and his wisdom. So we just starting with God, right? So I'm not going to tell you, it's not even on me to really tell you guys how to do this, because everyone's going to do it the same. I'm going to give you some analogies and some things that I will use that are really helpful, but this is the flow when you're really trying to get deep with somebody, right? So this might manifest itself in me just talking to someone at the beach here in town and just being asking them about creation and its beauty. And then I might press a little bit and I might say how do you think about this guy here? Do you think we're alone in the universe? Do you think there's a God? Or do you think this is just all a random explosion? And then just wait and listen to what they have to say. You're starting a conversation with somebody, right? You got to let them talk. And that's why as Christians we need to prepare ourselves with deeper truth, because it's not just walking someone through a script. Sharing the gospel is not a PowerPoint presentation. You're not all right, listen, I'm going to tell you the gospel. I'm going to so just hold on. Don't ask me any questions. Let's not have a conversation. It's different than that, right? And people press back. They have objections and questions, right? So, but as we're walking through stuff, we want to start with God. Now, the key point in creation with God is this. God is really, really good and really, really generous. And as a Christian, this is something that we have to have down, because what Satan does in our world is this. The biggest thing that's blocking people, I think, from becoming Christians is this simple trick that the devil plays on them, which is that God is the enemy. God is bad, right? In reality, sin is the enemy, right? Sin messed everything up. So we have to start before the stuff gets messed up to show people this is who God is, this is what he made things to be like, and this is how things were supposed to be. And ultimately, as we're going through the story, things are going to get back there one day. Does that make sense? So the trick that Satan plays is this. He knows that himself and sin and death, sin, Satan, and death is the enemy of humanity. Okay? Which, by the way, what did Jesus defeat at the cross? Sin, Satan, and death, right? Those are the things he came to beat, all right? So Satan, all he has to do to keep someone out of the kingdom is just be God's bad. God's the enemy. He doesn't want you to live how you want to live. He wants to stop you from doing the things that you'd like, blah, 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 right? However he can do that. It could be like the story I told you earlier where my grandma died, and if God was good, he wouldn't do that. No, God is good, but because we're bad, we invited sin into the world, and that's why cancer exists. That's why war happens. That's why the jails are full, right? That's why bullying takes place on playgrounds, right? That's why you have to teach a kid to share, not be selfish. That's why you have to teach a kid to not hit their brother, because sin. So sin is the problem. Make sense? So as we're talking through this, mankind is made in the image of God, Genesis 1:26, but then he also gave us dominion, all right? So think of it like this. We're in a beautiful place. So today, just today, me and Nehemiah, we sat underneath a 300-foot redwood tree, and then got in our car, ate some food, drove to a spot, and stood over cliffs looking at sea lions at the ocean, right? And it's beautiful. Now here's the crazy thing. God put us in charge of all of that. That's nice. That's a generous, good God. Every mountain, every river, every tree, every animal, What's your favorite fruit?
Raspberries.
Yeah, God gave those to you. Anyone over here like vegetables? I saw you eat some healthy foods. Come on.
Vegetables?
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, what's your favorite animal protein?
Oh, chicken.
Yeah, God gave you chicken, dude. Like, and you're like, we have dominion over the earth. So think of it this way. God made us, he's the king, but we're like the governors, right? So like, he made the earth for us to rule in his place. And then gave it to Adam and Eve and was like, yo, name the animals, they're yours. Name the trees. Be fruitful, multiply, right? So the God that we serve is this incredibly generous God who gave us everything. And when we share the gospel, this is like the starting point. Because if you can't start with a good God, then it's really hard when you get to the like, hey, God's good and you suck and you're going to hell. Like, you got to be able to like bridge that gap a little bit. And part of the way we bridge the gap is this. Psalm 8:4. Look, this is talking about us. God, you, made him, us, ruler over the works of your hands. All right, so Elon Musk's trying to build a spaceship to go to Mars. If we can go to Mars, who's in charge of Mars? We are. Think about that. You can go out tonight, walk out of this place, and every single thing that you see, even if you look up into the stars, God gave us dominion over that in his place. That's awesome, and that's true, and that's biblical. That's called the dominion mandate, right? So when we're talking about God, like I said, I'm not telling you how to start the conversation. That's kind of what the GOSPEL is for. This is the depth behind this stuff. Does that make sense? All right. Vice regent. So we are not just a part of creation. We were appointed over creation. And we reflect God's image in the way we steward and rule this world. Now, have we done a good job? No, we messed it up. But was the original plan just for God to just be like, yo, I made the best thing. I'm giving it to you, and I want you to be grateful and just love me. That's all I want. You're my kids. I love you. Trust me, when you guys have kids, you'll know. There is nothing like that you want to do more than bless your kid. You want to give them all the chances they can. You want to, like, my wife's always like, don't spoil them, you know, like, I mean, my daughter Annika, like, on a pastor's budget, which wasn't smart, like, hey, I bought her, like, every time I was at the store when she was little, I'd be like, oh, she doesn't have that Care Bear, like, she loved Care Bears back in the day. So I'd just, like, go to a room and, like, they're all there. Why? Because Dad loves her. And, like, I wanted to give her the best things that I could, right? How much more is God like that? So we serve a generous creator who made us and gave us everything. Now, the whole rest of this time, what I want to do, let me see here. Do I have, okay. I want to focus in on this point a little bit and then I want to have some discussion. So like, get ready to interact with me, please. Because if not, we'll just end like 15 minutes early and we'll take a little break and then we'll do the second session. But I'd really like to use the time and have discussion. So there's certain questions that the church has done a really, really bad job, not just teaching people, but like the pastors don't know either because no one taught them either. And it's really crazy to me because actually some of the questions are like the most important possible questions, okay? So if I went to a pastor's conference, which I do, and I teach pastors all the time, and I'm essentially teaching you the same, like a slightly lighter version of what I would be teaching pastors, okay? If I went into a pastor's conference of 500 pastors, and I said, all right, who in here can with confidence tell me why God put the tree in the garden? I maybe get 2 or 3 guys with the right answer. Now let's just think for a second. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think that question might be? That's like a 10, right? What's your name again, bro? Christian. Okay, that's good. All right, Christian. You're playing, so I want to, all right. So like, have you ever thought through that before? Have you ever like wondered? Who in here, let's, quick poll. Who in here has wondered that question before in their own imagination, in their mind? All right, who here has had someone tell them an answer to that question before? All right, would you share that, what they told you?
Sorry.
No, yeah, you first. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Like both ways or like?
Yeah, just go first. You go first, yeah.
You can't have true love
Love comes with choice. So.
Yep. Love comes with choice. So that's kind of connected to like God gave us free will,
Right.
so that we would choose to love him. And here's the thing. The answers that you're going to give me aren't going to be wrong, so don't feel bad, but they're also not fully right. Right? It's possible to have like a halfway right answer. So that's a halfway right answer. And it's a good answer, but it's halfway right. Did you get a similar one?
Similar, yeah.
Okay, so the two main answers, like if you were getting like in a theology class, even at a seminary, that you'd get would be simply this. The first one is the love question. Like, well, God wanted love. He wanted us to love him. So he put the tree in the garden and gave us free will so we would choose him, because if we chose him, then our love would be more valuable to him. All right? Kind of true. The second one is just flat out, he did it to give us free will. God didn't want to make robots, so he gave us free will. Here's the problem. The tree didn't give anybody free will. Do you think God, like, all right, for free will's sake, do you think Adam named the animals? Like, y'all know that in the Bible? Do you think that he could choose to name them whatever? Okay, well, is that free will? So he had free will before the tree stuff. You get what I'm saying? So like, part of the thing that humans have is God has these attributes, okay? And we break them in theology, we call them the incommunicable and the communicable, all right? So incommunicable attributes are attributes that God holds for himself and does not share with anyone else. So like, you are not what's your name?
Nev.
Nav? All right, so you are not sovereign. God's sovereign. You are not omnipotent, but God's omnipotent. But you have free will. You can love, right? Like, there's a whole bunch of these other things that are attributes that God has, that he shared with you to make you in his image. And we are imagers of God. Actually, I was asked earlier, do you use Nehemiah a lot? I typically don't, but I decided I'm going to do it right now. So Nehemiah sometimes, now he's like older, like he's getting like more my size. I mean, not like this way, but like this way. His voice got like people grow up, right? So like sometimes, like if my friend called me and he answered the phone real quick, like his voice on the phone started to like sound like me a little bit, right? Or if he was up here talking, like he may have a few of the same like mechanics that I like, body motions, and there's little things about me that he has, right? Now, is he me? But is he like me? Well, yeah, he's like me because he's like part of me, right? And that's kind of how God is with us. He's different than us, but we're in his image and we share some of his attributes. Does that make sense? All right, so back to the tree. So he didn't give us the tree for free will. He kind of gave it to us for like the loving thing, but here's really why he gave it to us. And this is like, if there's one thing from this session that you need to remember, like this is the thing. Because if you know the answer to this question, when you start to get to like the sin stuff and the judgment stuff, this makes sense. All right? So we started with a generous God who gave us everything. The whole universe, right? Like you're in charge. Like build a spaceship to the moon, you can make us, like we can make houses on the moon if we can live there, right? So what aren't we in charge of? I'm going to wait a second. Let's have some answers. What aren't we in charge of?
God.
We're not in charge of God. That's right. So why did God put the tree in the garden? To remind us that we're not in charge of him. Hey, everything on this earth you're in charge of, you're not in charge of me. So I'm going to put this tree in the garden and don't touch it, because this tree is the reminder that I'm God and you're not. And this tree is the reminder that I'm the king and you're the steward. Make sense? How do we know this is true? Well, when Satan comes to tempt Adam and Eve, what does he tempt them with? Anyone know? You can be like what? You can be like God. You can be like God. And that's kind of crazy, because if you think about it, now this is everyone pretty much an adult here, so I'm going to make a little bit higher than a youth group joke level here. How do you tempt Adam and Eve? So like, for example, how do you tempt the guy who has everything? Like his work is satisfying, the food is delicious, he feels great all the time, there's no death, there's no disease, and his wife is wearing his favorite outfit every day. How do you tempt that guy? Offer him the one thing he doesn't have. You can be God. You don't need him. You can rule your own life. Why don't you take all the gifts that he gave you and leave him in the past? That's what sin is. Does that make sense? So when we're sharing the gospel, when we're talking to people about Jesus, we have to start with a good God who gave us everything. All right? Because that good God who gave us everything, I mean, imagine this. Like, I've literally, I don't know if any of y'all have had this happen, but I've been sharing the gospel with someone before, and I've just had them be like, yeah, right, I think your God is horrible. Like, I don't believe in him, but I also think he's horrible. Because, yeah, in your religion, he sends, 2/3 of the planet to hell because they ate the wrong fruit from the wrong tree. It seems very arbitrary, doesn't it? Doesn't it seem like, why would that be the thing? It's because it's so much more than that, right? We're not God. God's not down with like multiple kingdoms, by the way. Like, he made us. Here's an analogy. Now, this will be crazy because, like, this is why I tell people, like, you don't share the gospel all the way I do necessarily. I use, like, I'm a kind of nerd. I use nerdy examples. Like, it would not be uncommon for me to use, like, Lord of the Rings, Legos, video game references, like, all sorts of, like, weird, dorky things when I'm sharing the gospel, when I'm trying to relate to someone. So, like, let's use the movie The Toy Story real quick. You guys everyone's seen Toy Story, right? There's a new one that just came out. Like, the concept in the Toy Story movie is, when no one's looking, the toys are alive, right? All right, so let's just imagine like a hypothetical situation. What's your name again?
Ellie.
Ellie. Okay, so Ellie, let's say that you got like this giant, like huge box of Legos when you were a kid, and you built a little Lego universe in your room. And one night when you were laying in bed, you noticed like, oh, they're all alive and they're down there talking, right? That'd be kind of cool, right? But imagine if they were like, hey, let's kill Ellie and take over her room. What would you maybe do with those Legos at that point in time?
Probably get rid of it.
Yeah, probably chuck it out the window, like chuck them, like melt them. Like if you're a boy, like you might get like a magnifying glass the next day and like melt them slowly in your driveway. Like you would get rid of them, right? Because the creation that you made now is trying to take you out. All right? Well, so that's in a way what humanity did with God. God made us. He gave us everything. He gave us our life. Not only gave us our life, he gave us this great planet to live on with animals and beauty and mountains and trees and, fruits and vegetables and meat, like everything that you could possibly want. And then even then he looked at Adam and was like, oh, dude, I got one more thing. Like, I got one more thing for you. Look at her. And he, everything good. And then Satan rolls up and it's like, hey, let's get rid of him. Let's get rid of him. You see how, like, when you understand the depth of what's going on here, can you, like, I haven't even got into that, like, how do we explain sin? But, like, do you see how this is starting to pave the way for, like, so that's why people go to hell, dude. Like, it's not like, yeah, you boys, like, hey, I know you were struggling during yoga pants jogging season, and like you girls, I know you were struggling during like gossip time and like all these other so you're going to hell now. It's way bigger than that. Like, yeah, those are small offenses, but they're like capital crimes. Because what sin really is, it's telling God, like, you're not in charge of me anymore. I don't do what I want, and I'm going to take your stuff. Imagine if you saved up, bought like the most lavish gift and gave it to somebody, and instead of like them telling you thank you or I love you, they just like took the present and just left and never said a thing. That'd be hurtful, right? So like all of these examples in many regards are what's happened because God was so gracious. Does that make sense? All right, question, yeah, please.
I wanted to bounce off of sin is kind of like telling God you aren't in charge of me.
Yeah.
So I've been out evangelizing for like the last 3 years and at Zane at LTC. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go from like a agnostic point of view.
Yeah.
Why would I want God to be in charge of me?
He is in charge of you. whether you like it or not.
And then off that, isn't that controlling?
Yes. You see, here's another thing too, dude. Jesus is Lord.
Yeah.
You can't even, like, I'm about to set up, what I'm going to do with you guys is I'm about to set up a gospel that's not soft. Like, the gospel's not soft, dude. Like, you go love people, you tell them the truth. Like, you're not love, like, you don't, like, tickle and hug somebody into heaven, bro. Like, it's on.
Yeah, that's good.
Like, I'm here as an ambassador of Christ from the kingdom of heaven. And the message that Paul gave me to bring to you and that Jesus gave me the authority to bring to you is this: be reconciled to God. God made him who knew no sin to become sin for us so that we could become the righteousness of God. Straight up. And you're a rebel. And God is a king. And there's no other kingdoms. And right now you're in a grace period, but one day he's coming back. And when he comes back, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess. And I am here to plead with you and to love you and to serve you and to be gracious and kind to you and even let you spit on and ridicule me. But I'm not about to be soft with it. And so, like, yeah, bro. See, that's what I mean. It's hard.
No, yeah, that was a super good response. I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, but that's real. That's like real life.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so this is also part of why, I'm just going to be honest, like street evangelism, like what I call cold turkey evangelism, like it's great practice, but it's not for everyone. And part of the reason you guys are doing it is because if you can go out and do that, you better believe you can go back home and witness to your friends, your cousins, your neighbors, and your friends, like for the rest of your life. Because like, I mean, I got a friend right now who he's an evangelist like me in my town. His name's Steven. And he's really loving, but every day people pay him, like Christians give him money so he can support his family, and he goes and stands in front of Planned Parenthood every single day and asks every person coming in. So a lot of times he'll ask the girl when she comes in, and then the piece of junk boyfriend who's sitting in the car, not even supporting them, and he'll walk up to the car and be like, bro, can I just talk to you? Right? Why? Because those people they're doomed, dude. Like, we're in a period right now where like the judgment of God is like, it's aimed at the earth, but he didn't release the arrow yet. Does that make sense? So part of understanding the gospel is that, yeah, I mean, if you're doing cold turkey evangelism, like you gotta have some chops, right? This is part of why when we get further into this study over the next couple days, we're gonna talk about like, what does this look like for you, right? Because if you wanna lead someone to Christ, you actually have to tell them the whole gospel. Part of the problem in the American church is that we've like cut out the parts of the gospel that are, and then what happens is people get buyer's remorse and they maybe were never saved in the first place. Like, does that make sense? And so it's super important that we're not like afraid, but it's also, this is why I want to be really sensitive. Like that's part of why I said like, I don't think that everyone should share the gospel the same exact way that I do. Because I have a certain gift set that's designed for like more confrontational settings, if that makes sense. But like if you're in here and you're a mercy person, like the gospel's still the same. It's just that okay, let's talk about supernatural stuff for a second, all right? So like what I just said to you, like you're a Christian and you were kind of like, whoa, that's not the answer I was expecting, but that hit. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm just being honest. Like, it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just life. I'm gifted supernaturally by God to say things like that sometimes. Not because I'm super smart, not anything like that. It's because that God decided like, hey, Aaron, you're saved. I'm going to use your life and your testimony. I'm going to portion you these gifts because I want you ministering to people in this way. Right? There's going to be people in here who's an introvert? Anyone in here an introvert? Great. You're going to share the gospel different than me. Okay? And that's okay. Like, that's why I'm not here saying like, you got to do it just like me. But the gospel's the same for everybody. So like, it's okay, by the way, to take your time with it. It's okay to build the friendship. It's okay if you have service gifts to like serve somebody. It's okay if you have hospitality gifts to like lovingly, slowly minister to them. Because then when you get to the hard truths, it softens them. You know, if you've spent 6 months in mercy, loving someone who's been wounded and hurt and abused and abandoned in their life, and when you get to the part and you're kind of like, listen, we're rebels of God, like, and I'll just tell people, like, listen, and by the way, I think this might be helpful. When I share the gospel with somebody, here's how I open. I ask them, hey, have you ever heard the true story of Christianity before? That's what I ask them. Have you ever heard the true story of Christianity? Right? And then it's like, well, sometimes they'll say yes, and then I'll just be like, oh, cool, can you tell it to me in like 2 sentences? Like, tell me in a couple sentences, like, what's the message of Christianity? And then people will be like, well, you know, like, be good, like, believe in God. Like, they give you like these really basic answers. And then that gives you the opportunity to say, like, well, hey, could I tell you, like, I've been studying the Bible, or hey, I'm at a discipleship school this past summer at Life School, and could I share with you some of the things I learned about the deeper, like the true story of Christianity? Because ultimately, the true story of Christianity is this: good God made everything, and He gave it all to us, right? It's a cosmic story. It's not just like my life. I'm like a small player in this. Matter of fact, I can make an argument that humans are the third most important characters in the Bible. Okay? So like, whoever played like a Mario or a Zelda game? Okay, Zelda, my favorite games. All right? Part of the fun of the Zelda games is at the end, you get to fight Ganon, the boss, right? So the Bible has a boss fight. Who's the boss fight at the end? Satan. So do you think he might be a more important character than we are? Like the last battle, not us. It's him. We're talking about a cosmic story, dude. And that's, Christian, that's part of the reason I answered that question that way. Because we're so earthly focused that we make everything about us. The agnostic person who's asking that is condemning himself by asking that. Because he's so focused on himself that he hasn't even realized that there's this whole cosmic universe that exists, that Christ rules and reigns supreme over. And that Satan, by the way, if Satan wanted to, Satan could take that guy out. If an angel wanted to, an angel could take that guy out. If a demon wanted to, like, we're small. And here's this guy being like, I'm God. Like, how dare the maker of the universe tell me what to do and give me all this stuff? Like, you see what I'm saying? Now, you want to be nice. But like, you have to also see, like, when you hear someone say that, it should be like, oh, like, no, please don't think that way, man. Like, please don't. Like, I urge you. Like, the king is coming back. Like, and we're in this in-between period where the last time the king came, he came as like a humble, sacrificial lamb. And the next time he comes, he's coming as the rider on the white horse with the blood dripping off of his robes and a tattoo on his thigh that says, Lord of Lords and King of Kings. And a sword. Like, that's the Bible. You see what I'm saying? And so, like, the true story of Christianity is God made everything. We rejected it, and we seceded from his kingdom and tried to establish our own. And instead of destroying us, going back to remember the analogy? Okay, so God, let's say this, we're the creation. What if God would have, when Adam and Eve sinned, what if he would have just taken the earth and been like, wham, throw that one away, let's make a new one? Would he have been wrong? Anyone in here think he'd have been wrong for doing that? No. Did he do that? All right, anyone ever see the movie Gladiator? All right, so when they die in Gladiator, they end up going and they kind of like, you know the scene, like he's like walking through the wheat field, and it's kind of like this, it ain't heaven, but it ain't hell either. It's kind of like this middle place. What if God would have done that? I think that'd have been nice. He didn't do that either. Instead, the king sent the prince to come live with the rebels who tried to take out the kingdom. And he gave his life so that the rebels who should be destroyed can come and live in the castle. Does that make sense? Like, that's the story of Christianity, right? And so, like, we're dealing with epic things, epic proportions, big, like, universe, cosmic, like, the universe is a big place, dude. And God rules that. And we're like down here for like 75 years. like telling him what we're going to do and stuff. You know what I mean? So like evangelism, yes, there's part of it where you're like pleading with someone, but really what you're doing, like, dude, it's a rescue mission for lost people who are going straight down to their doom without knowing it. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. And my encouragement is this, like, I always joke with people because like I'm very wired towards truth, right? So like, you know, my joke was always like, I like to do sauna evangel, like go in the sauna and I'll be like, yo, you think it's hot in here? Like get started, like, don't do that. Like that's not good, okay? And like, and a lot of times guys like me, when we first start sharing the gospel, like we'll have some bad encounters and like I'm kind of feisty. And so like, you know, be like, fine, like have fun in hell then. Like it's not like that, okay? So like, you know what I mean? Like it's like this balance, be like a peaceful warrior. If you think of it that way, like it's not for pansies, it's not soft, dude. It's not. Like it's real stuff. But you're a man of peace. You're a woman of peace. You're a rescuer. You're an ambassador from the kingdom of heaven, from the cosmic king of the universe, who sits on the imperial throne of the whole universe. And you have been commissioned by that king, that loving, gracious king who gave us everything, right? To go and reach people. Now let's finish with, I got a few more minutes. Let's just do one more really big concept, okay? Is this making sense, by the way?
No.
All right. Why do you think God made us? Another big question. Who's thought about that? Like quick poll. Nobody, like, all right, who's thought about that? Who's thought about it? Like, you know what I always think about things like that? When I can't sleep good. I'm like, why did you make us? Like, oh great, now I'm not gonna really sleep for like another half an hour, right? Okay, so why? Anyone wanna take a stab? I may be giving, like, I'm sure the answer is not wrong, but it might be like the first time I asked. Like it might be a half-right answer, but I wanna hear, because I want us to like dialogue. So who wants to be brave and tell me a reason why you think God made us?
Me and my mom ran this thought back and forth. I was like, well, why did God make us? It's not like God's lonely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like he's lonely. But I also think that it's because, and maybe I'm wrong, but that he wanted us to experience his love.
Sure.
So.
I think that's a huge point. Love. Huge point. Yeah?
Like, I don't know if that has to do with, like, God, but, like, when I think about having kids, like, just to know, like, have a mini-me sounds awesome.
It is awesome.
I don't know if that's how God feels, but...
I mean, it's awesome and sometimes they're naughty, but, like... Okay, well, good news. I don't have to go any further. That's the reason.
What?
That's the reason. God wanted a family. So here's a crazy concept. Angels, that whole thing, that pre-exists us. Before the earth was made, before we were made, there was already a whole bunch of stuff that God was working around with. Go to Job. In the book of Job, which is the oldest book in the Bible, it says Job's been having like nothing but suffering, and he finally breaks down and he's like, why, oh why am I going through all of this stuff? And God tells him, where were you when I made the earth? Where were you? Where were you? And then he finishes with, where were you when the sons of God rejoiced at the creation of your planet, essentially? And the sons of God, by the way, in the Old Testament, those are called Elohim. It's a Hebrew thing. It's like God's the big Elohim, the one, the creator, but the spiritual realm, right? That all exists before us. And I don't know if it existed for 5 minutes or 5 billion years. No one knows. God wasn't lonely, like you said. He's been creating things. Now here's a great thing. Did God need angels? Did he need them? Nope. So why did he make them? He wanted them. He wanted them. Did God need us? So why did he make us? He wanted a family. He wanted a family. Okay? And what's happened is the family that God created has been estranged. We're no longer under his house, and we've gone off and gone in our own ways, which are destructive and death-filled ways. And now he's commissioned us to go bring the family back. And by the way, the reason that he wants us to... Here's another great question. Could God save everyone by himself?
Yes.
So why does he use us? I'll give you a story from my own life, okay? When this kid was younger, every now and then, I had to go do like a chore or a project, okay? Now you'll learn this when you're a parent. There are times where you can just do the job faster yourself, okay? But there's also a deep satisfaction and a joy that you get in watching your child grow into who they're supposed to be, right? And so it's a beautiful family picture. We've been invited into the family business to work for our Father, and the family business is go get the rest of the kids back. All right? That's the mission of God. That's why we're here. That's why we evangelize, and that's why Jesus died on the cross. To bring the family back. How important of a topic, by the way, is the theme of family in the Bible?
Huge.
Exactly. It's like top 5 easily. Like imagine what the Old Testament would be like without all the family stuff. You wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
Like God is a family, like we are a part of the family of God. Here's a crazy thought. In the Old Testament, the angels are called the sons of God. Do you know who the sons of God are in the New Testament? Us. We outrank them, we'll judge them. That's who we are. We are the sons and daughters of God. And we will continue to be the sons and daughters of God after this life and forever. And by the way, angels, you know what the word angel means? Messenger. Messenger. Hey, listen, being a messenger for God is a pretty good job. What's our job title? Do you know? 6th session we'll deal with this. We are ambassadors. And guess what? Ambassadors outrank messengers. You see, one of the problems in the church is that it's not wrong, it's just not all the way right? So like in the church, it's kind of like this. It's like, hey, you're bad, this is true, and we should say that. Like, you're bad, quit your sinning, trust in some Jesus, read your Bible, and get to church. Amen? Right? Here's the other side. You are a son and a daughter of God. And you have been filled with the Holy Spirit. And you have been commissioned by the one who has all authority in heaven and earth to go in that authority as his child and as his ambassador to the nations. And that's also true. But we don't talk about that second part enough. You know what I'm saying? So there you go. Session 1. God is good. Everybody feeling that? Like God is good. And when we share the gospel, listen, you don't have to use all the verses I had up there. You don't have to use the same analogies. You don't have to use the Lego creation, although it actually is kind of a cool analogy, actually. But what we do is when we share the gospel, as you grow in it, like you start with a tool, the GOSPEL, or the 4 spiritual laws, or 3 circles. And as you grow, you start to be able to just explain it from your heart. And all of my sessions are designed to help you guys grow in that area. Does that make sense? So these aren't prescriptions for how to share. They're descriptions of the depth of what we're sharing. Does that make sense? And so the next one, we'll take a break for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about, hold on, I had one more slide. God gave us life, purpose, and authority, and beauty. Though we failed, his generosity continued, ultimately in giving his son. And the gospel begins with a God who gives and gives again. And when we share with people in a broken, lost world with no hope, you got to start with who God really is. And the great news about that is that he's really good. He's really good. And people might deny. Hey, just love them, dust your sandals off, pray for them, and do it again. Fair enough? Let me pray, and then we'll take a few minute break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about sin.